Hello and welcome to We Women Want. As you know, this is a show where we actually raise issues that are pertinent to women, for women and by women, from everything from body shaming to health issues, medical issues, to laws, to domestic violence, to fashion. I mean, also to, who decides that size 0 is normal. We have fitness tips. This is really where you get answers to all your questions, or so we hope. But today we are going to be doing something with a different. We have the stakeholders themselves, the new age women of today. Joining me in the show is going to be the voice of the young woman. We have with us students from the Vedica Scholars Program for Women, and also joining me is Anuradha Das Mathur. She is the founder and the dean of the program, and of course we have a studio full of young voices, so we are going to actually let them do the talking and find out what they think and what the pulse really is. But before I start with them, Anuradha, can you just help us tell our viewers what the Vedica Scholars Program is and a little bit about what you see as the new age woman of today as?
Thank you, Priya. It's great to be back on the show.
It's always lovely to have you.
Last year on Women's Day, and also great to be here with our students. The program was launched. We are going to be entering our 10th year, and it's an all-women's management plus. We call it an MBA plus program. And it was born with a very simple mission, which was our observation that women were more educated and less employed in India. Urban educated women are dropping in the workforce, and it's counterintuitive. As an economist, as a researcher, and as a working woman, couldn't understand why this was happening. And I think what was becoming very clear was that we are teaching our young women to study and get jobs, but we don't teach them how to keep jobs.
Oh, a good point, yeah.
Right? Retention is the problem. Between 28 and 35, there's a very leaky pipeline and girls just drop off the workforce. And I think the second thing that we figured was that dignity and dependence don't go hand in hand. And I just feel like if you're born, whether it's an animal or a human being or any living species, I feel like the least you deserve and should expect from your life is dignity. So with both these things came the fact that if you have to be able to live a life of dignity, you have to be independent to some extent. Physical, financial, emotional, and intellectual is how we identified it. And everything becomes a little bit easier with financial independence. Now, the only way I know how to become financially independent is to work.
Correct.
Join work and stay in the workforce. And that's how Vedica was born, a program that teaches young women to become competent enough to be in the workforce and equipped with all kinds of skills to be able to stay in the workforce.
That's actually a very, there was that huge gap between, the two. So I'm glad you filled that with your program. But my second question to you, the women of today, I think I hate to say it, but we are now not the women of today. So how do you compare this young lot with us? These are girls, I guess, in their mid-20s.
Yeah, they're in their mid-20s. And, the hope of the future lies in young women. I think even more than young men. I think the young men are trying to catch. Young men are trying to catch up. And I think they are going to really change the way the world sort of happens over the next decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. I think what is changing is just the way they think about themselves, about work, about families. It's actually has been very surprising to me. I hadn't thought that in my lifetime I would hear a generation of young women, and more importantly their mothers who are like our age, tell them ki kaam karo aur naukri mat chhodna. Mothers are telling their daughters, naukri mat chhodna, and to say that of course it's important to have a family, of course it's important to have relationships, of course it's important to be a part of a social fabric, but you do that alongside. Don't give up work. So I think the goalposts or the objectives of a young woman's life have changed significantly. Now, while I'm saying that mothers are encouraging their girls and girls are also, I think, responding to that, I think there are some things that are still very much the same, like they were for you and me, which is the need to please, the need to be likable, carrying the guilt for, an entire world and a generation, confidence levels, the sense of self, all of those things, I think, even though they are changing, they haven't changed even remotely enough for these women to live differently. And I think our program, in addition to teaching them how to be at work, the parallel program that we have for 18 months is all of these things. Confidence, understanding your strengths, learning to question stereotypes, being able to dream, aspire, voice yourself, things that we weren't taught.
Yeah.
And I think telling them that what we expect from the world is equality, not sameness. I'm not the same as men. The
Correct.
world is not the same for men and women. It must be equal. And for that equality, the things that you need to be able to ask for,
Okay.
desire, all of that is things that we are teaching them. And you know the conflicts that present themselves. So this work-life balance, you mentioned it in your opening remarks. The entire responsibility for balance is on
the woman.
us, right? So I think that sort of stuff that you can expect very different, but be prepared that those questions will come, those stages will come, and how can you navigate through those without having to quit work? So we just say constantly at Vedica, #don't quit, #don't quit. Just don't quit your job.
Just don't quit. Okay, I'm going to throw it open and get your views on some of the issues that Anuradha has actually raised in her conversation. Is one question I want to ask all of you is, what do you feel that your generation is doing differently from ours? And what is it that you like about it? And what is it that you don't like about our generation that you feel that there is a flaw? So we won't take it personally. So who wants to go first with that?
Yeah, so my name is Mahima Pathak. I'm from Patna, Bihar. My question is a little bit different to what you guys have talked now. Like we face still at the workplace, there is just stereotype and bias like man dominating role. So my question is how we can challenge traditional gender role and stereotype to create more inclusive and equitable society for women.
That's what you were talking about, equity and rather than sameness.
Yeah, I think, I think we are talking about it every day. So the onus lies on, there's lots of work happening at the policy level, maybe not enough. Organizations are now trying to do things around diversity, but I think a lot of it depends on us. And I'll ask you all back, and I've done this in the classroom many times, how many of you are happy to have a house husband?
Oh, that's nearly half.
Yeah, so it's still half, right? And so we are halfway there.
Correct.
Isn't it? Some of the biases lie in us, that we want equality, but it's a journey to give up what we've been used to. I say this all the time. How many of us, have you all read Chimamanda Adichie? You should have, because, we give this book out on day one. It's called Everyone Should Be a Feminist. I'm forgetting the title. What is the title?
Everyone should be a feminist.
Chimamanda Adichie. It's a small book.
Okay.
But, she says that most women say thank you to their husbands when he changes a diaper. It's like we have assumed that role. We have assumed that responsibility.
Right.
Right? And we say, oh, thank you so much for doing this for us. Our heads are not as equal as they need to be. So I think this thing that you're talking about, I'll give you many examples. Money, the relationship that women have with money. Now, Priya, so many of us don't want to be thought of as money-minded or very aggressive bargainers, right? We want to have the reputation of being someone, oh, she loves her work, and yeah, she's fair, but no, she's not money-minded, okay, or a tough negotiator. It's our problem. How ready are we for the reputation that, money is really important to her and she's going to fight for it?
Yeah, those become qualities. One, so she's very guyish, aggressive.
So we have to shed those inhibitions for some of those, for us to be able to ask. So part of the problem is not asking. Part of the problem is that the half or the people who own that power aren't willing to give it away. And I get asked a lot that, why should men and women have to do this together?
Yeah.
Of course, but does anybody who has power give it up voluntarily. I mean, you follow politics every day, Priya. When you have power, somebody has to ask for it or take it or seize it.
Correct.
For it to be shared, right? And I think this is our time.
रोते हुए बच्चे को दूध मिलता है, in very simple terms. So, end of the day, yeah, ask and be more.
We have to walk away from our stereotypes and we have to smash the other stereotypes.
Also.
And I want to flip the question to you. How many men have the ability or the option of being the primary parent? I was talking to a group of very senior men leaders last week, 30, 40 of them in a room. How many of them have the option to walk away from a job?
So to be fair to them, there is also a role that is thrust on them.
Yeah. So I think roles are thrust on us and roles are thrust on men. And I think that the objective or the goal or the mission that all of us should be on is that the common enemy is patriarchy. It is not men and it is not women. Patriarchy has defined the world in a way that roles have gotten divided in a very unequal manner.
Correct.
And we have to make it possible for women to walk into the workplace and for men to walk into the domestic space.
Well
be
said.
Primary parents, be primary caregivers. Which person doesn't want to be around for their, child sports day or when they're sick? They don't have that option. And we don't have the option to be at a board meeting and whatever else in a traditional sort of sense, even though it's changing.
Even though it's changing. Okay, next question. Does anybody else have more questions?
So, in our country, there are still places where men are prioritized on the basis of work and pay. So, what steps do you think can be taken to address gender pay gap and promote financial equality?
No one really is there to give out money. You have to really fight for your
I mean,
rights.
organizations are changing. There are diversity policies everywhere, but I think both sides have to be equally, we have to be persistent. We have to be comfortable. And I think the starting point is the expectation.
Yeah.
Right? That you expect equality, you live equality, you ask for equality. I'll give you a few examples, Priya, what we've observed over the years. Like I said, women drop out much faster than men. Now, some of it is your own personal space that you're not able to navigate. And yes, the problems are in society, problems are systemic. How many of us have the courage to say, I don't give a toss, I'm going to go to work? Right? Very few. I was giving someone the example the other day about women's only travel companies. They're booming.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that would happen 15 years ago? Right?
We have a whole women's lawyer firm.
Yeah.
And she says everybody goes home at 5:30. We just put the pen down because we have also
you're
homes.
You're redefining the way women want to live. Having said that, the point that I was making was about you defining how you want to live, what you're willing to do. So, girls, the fact that you're not brought up to believe that you don't have an option.
Yeah.
You have to be at work. Society doesn't believe that. You don't believe that.
Okay.
I mean, we're trying to change that at Vedica. We just say that, you have to have a career, you have to have a life. But this is a microcosm, it's a small group in the world. Now, if you're going to quit, what does it do looking back? When parents have one set of collateral and they have to pay for a loan, secure a loan for education, the reason they will do it is that the guy doesn't have the option. He has to work, he has to support a family in the traditional sense of the word. So, his education is an investment. The girl's education is consumption because you don't know whether she's going to work or not. Now, we have to change all of that, right?
Right.
When we change that life, we change the signs, and that's how you will be viewed as someone who will take their career as seriously as the person sitting next to you.
So it's your attitude also, not just the company's attitude. I'm going to take a break, but before a break, I want you all to think about one question that I'm going to be asking you, which is, the tradition of Kanyadan, where during the marriage, the father gives the bride away, literally. A lot of women today find that whole word very offensive. They say, why are we a commodity to be given away? But there are traditions, there is a whole, reason why this was happened. But I want to ask all of you, how many of you are happy with that concept in your shadi to be given away as Kanyadan, or you have no problems with it, or you actually will say, no, I don't want that to happen to me? After a break, so I'm going to ask you all to raise your hands. So stay with us. We are here to talk. We've got with us a group of young girls who are just stepping out into the world of, they're all going to be working women. They're training for that. So we're going to be talking to them about how they feel about the world that they are, living in. What are their social priorities? What are their financial priorities? What are their life's priorities? And I asked you that question about, traditions. How many of you, like Kanyadan is just one example. Would you all be happy, or you think there's nothing wrong with it, or you strongly feel that there is something wrong with it? So how many of you feel strongly there's something wrong with it? Okay, you want to say something?
Yeah, I feel like giving your kanya as a daan, I'm very opposed to it. Like, why? And after the marriage or kanya daan, the parents feel like you are now the property of someone else, and you have left your house, you have don't here. Like, maybe the thought has been changed and approved, but still there is a thought like giving your kanya to the person as a commodity, like now this is your property now.
Correct.
So yeah, so I am very against. And why? Like, you are giving me a partner of life, so you are introducing with my life partner, not giving me as his property.
Well
So
said,
yeah,
well
this
said.
is
I think we
the-
should clap for that one. Very well said. Anybody else wants to add?
Very well said by Mahima. But I also want to add, like, there are some traditions which we as society have also denied. So, there was the tradition of sati in marriage, and then, of course, like when we talk about dowry, I mean, it is still
Yes.
very much prevalent. But then we realize that there is something wrong with it. That it's not something that it's okay to just, again, it's commodifying the bride, that ye bhi le lo, paise bhi le lo. So I mean, we need, for me at least, I have identified that this is wrong, and just like what she said, that it's commodifying the bride, and yeah, just wanted to add that.
Okay.
So I feel it's not just men or any particular section of the society. So, for example, my elder sister got married last year. So during the whole ceremony and traditions, her father said that I don't want to do this whole tradition of Kanyadan, and he was strictly against it because of a similar reason. But in the end, he was forced to do it because there were elder people in the family, including men, women, everybody, who said that, this is something we want to stick to because this is our traditions. And even if he wanted to really oppose it and stop it, he couldn't because there were a lot of internal forces in the family that
Correct.
wanted to do it. So it ended up happening anyway. So I think it's a really contributed approach that's going to lead us to stop things like these.
No,
So
she makes
I-
a great point.
The tradition.
No, you make a great point. The thing is that even raising it introduces change, and it may give somebody else the courage in the next time to go through with it.
To take
so
it
I
to
think so it's great to raise.
You want to say something? I'll ask you another question.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for having us here. I'm Priyanshi. Just adding to Shubhangi's and Mahima's point. What I feel that there are a lot of traditions that we are blindly following from so long, we have never questioned it. So regarding this Kanyadan, before few days we were having a discussion in the classroom that why is this even Kanyadan is coming from. So it actually says from historical point of view that it is the father or the uncles of the daughter who have the right, or who has the right on the daughter, and that's why they do Kanyadan to give that right. Like now we don't have the right on the daughter, so it's the partner that has taken the right. So that is what is, I think, very problematic, that why somebody has to take the right on the women.
Thank you. Well
and
said.
not being
Well
I
said.
was just wondering where she'll go with this.
Yeah.
so yeah.
Very
thank
good.
You.
But the other, sorry.
Pri, can I just add here, we have a Shastriji who comes to my home quite often just for Havans. And he's like a scholar. He spoke about this one day, and he said, Chalo Kanyadan, to we'll come to that next. What is Dan? Dan means I give this to you and you can do what you like with it.
Right.
You have nothing to do with what you give away. So he said, agar, he was giving that example. He said, agar mujhe ek lota dete ho abhi, daan mein, whether I kick it, whether I melt it, whether I sell it, whether I throw it,
It's my property now.
it's mine. He said, which parent would be okay to say that about their child? And he actually questions the way the tradition came about. He said it got misinterpreted and whatever has happened, because he questions the fact
Yeah.
that somebody who has a child would say, take her away and do what you like with her. That's really what you're saying.
Yeah.
There are some girls who didn't raise their hands. Do you want to ask them why they're okay with it?
Yeah, that's what the second question is. Those who feel that it's okay, it's or they are totally, you don't care either way, or you find that there's nothing wrong with it. Anybody wants to speak on that?
My name is Ayushi. I'm also a student of the Vedica Scholars. So,
Where are you from?
I'm from Kota, Rajasthan. So, when my mom got married, she didn't have this ritual in her wedding. So, my family has never done Kanyadan till now. They just call it a Dori Rasam because they have to tie the knot, and that's it. And everybody can do it. Like anybody from the family can do it. It's not the girl's parents have to do it. So, my family has never introduced us to the Kanyadan
That's a nice,
system. Yeah.
but that's a nice, more equal thing. It's more like your partners, as someone mentioned.
Exactly.
But someone who thinks there is nothing wrong with an old tradition. So essentially, more or less, I think you are. The other thing also, I find that when parents get old and all, it somehow it happens that the girls ends up becoming the caregiver and looking after them. But there's always the thing, the boy has he's always treated as the equal, as very morbid. I don't want to go into it. But the funeral pyre is also led by the man and not the girl. When there's the girl who's done everything really for the looking after. Do you think that is something that needs to change? That the girls should be the mother. Do you find that your parents are giving your due to you as a girl child, or there is that you're feeling that how many of you feel second that the boy, your brother, is given more importance? Your brother is given more importance.
So hello, thank you for having us here. I'm Ujjwala and I'm from Jamshedpur, Jharkhand. The question that you asked, that even the girl child is not allowed to give the fire, and for if if her parents are not anymore. So I was always having this question ki why not girls? I have always been asking my parents that now that for example, I do not have my own brother. We are two sisters, but I always ended up asking ki what if someday there will be a ritual and someone outside of my family who wasn't there for this long has to come and just for the thing. And I saw this challenged by one of my friends who lived just beside my house. So her father passed away recently, and it was the elder girl of their child who did the funeral process and everything. And there were people in her family who said, ki this cannot happen, and her father's brother, that's her uncle, would be allowed to do it. But she was like, no, that's my father, and I've seen that girl challenge, and that was like very empowering for me as well.
Good.
So
that's a good story. But that's, as you said, that's how the traditions.
That's how you get courage. And Priya, to your earlier point, and actually around traditions, I just want to say that, see, I feel very strongly about the starting point of feminism, which is that we all have to believe we are equal in our heads. But given that I work with, young women, older people from across the country, and Vedica represents 92 cities in this country, right? Wow. Very different backgrounds, very different upbringing and all of that. So I think you have to be open to the fact that change, and especially social change, takes time. So what we ask of our girls is, please sign up to the belief system, which is we are equal. Now, how that feminism and that equality manifests itself can take a little bit of time. So you start feeling equal, but do you behave equal?
Yeah.
And when can you behave equal? So I think this kind of stuff takes time. You have to find the courage in yourself to get to a point. I mean, I can give you my own example. I come from a family where all the women work. There was no question of like evident discrimination or any of that. But changing your name when you get married.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't want to stand out like a sore thumb. That was the only reason. The need to belong is so strong that you do some things if they're not draconianly against what you believe. But 3 years out into being married, I was like, sitting with my in-laws, and I said, would you mind? That I could bring back my maiden name into the equation. Karwa Chauth, great example.
Yes.
That you can tell yourself, yeah, one day of detox, this, that, and the other, and find reasons to justify going along with something, because it takes a lot of courage to fight it. It takes a lot of courage and bravery to become a person who says, you know what, I don't care about what the rest of you do, I'll do this. I got there.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be, everybody is not born like that. I think these girls are born more equal, and I think they will get to that point
But more
much faster
than us. But also I noticed that even men, let's give them credit. A lot of men keep Karwa Chauth along with the women.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of men also are helping around with the kids and, quite happy to be part of the thing. So the
Changing
change
very
is coming,
rapidly.
maybe because we're totally out of time. So one last show of hands. How many of you want to keep your maiden name, and how many of you are comfortable changing the name? You want to keep the name?
Whoa.
Everybody's keeping the name. Okay. On that note, hope to have you all back again sooner than later. But thank you for watching this show, and thank you all for being here.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.